Welcome to episode 31 of The Liz McMullen Show. My guest this evening is Chris Paynter. Welcome back to the show, Chris.
Thank you, Liz. It's good to be back.
It's been so long. It's been moments, really.
I know. Don't tell anybody.
Oh, my God. No, it's just... Okay, because I have two shows now, Lizzie's Bedtime Stories and the Review Show. If an author is doing both shows, I record them at the same time, and the recording time is always oriented to whatever's coming first. So her first episode with me was moments ago, episode 4 of Lizzie's Bedtime Stories, which was smashing. And if you haven't listened to it, go back and listen to it again.
Yeah.
And so now we are 11 weeks later, magically, because the episode 30 and tonight's episode was 19. So, okay, now that you know we're little crazy fools who've been talking for the last hour. So, Mistress Paynter,
Yeah.
you write yourself some comeback novels, I'll tell you. And the reason why I call them comeback novels is that you start with oh, fuck. Something bad has happened, right? And it may not be at the moment of oh fuck, but it oh fuck exists, somewhere in the streamline of it all. And then people work at, finding their way back to each other. I'm making my way back to you, girl. so instead of having oh, Lord.
And I haven't even been drinking, so I've just been drinking water.
No, and the thing is, from the time that forever, people have always accused me of being drunk and or high.
Yeah.
And neither is necessary because I'm just crazy. Yeah, I'm on my own fuel. We can't blame this on like Hennessy or ecstasy or something E. So instead of what is more traditional, you have two people in a romance that are meeting through happenstance, haven't known each other beforehand, and they come with their own baggage, and you get to know them as things go along. In Come Back to Me and Survived by Her Longtime Companion, we're dealing with, not necessarily in sequence, but both couples have been intimate and in love with each other before.
Right.
And both stories kind of have a different route. But the thing that's tricky is that you could very easily have had the couples get together more quickly. Mm-hmm. Though in real life, things don't smooth over in a Hollywood kind of way.
Right. It'd be nice, but it doesn't.
No, it's not like in Come Back to Me, like the first time Meryl and Angie see each other, let's get married. Forget the 11 some odd years we've been apart.
Right.
It's time to get married. We're going to get a house. We're going to have kids.
A dog.
Exactly. And not 2.5 dogs unless there is a dog growing within the other dog, okay? Anyway, so the first book, what are we talking about in sequence? Which book came out first?
Come Back to Me was my second release, so that would have been in 2010. May of 2010.
And Survived by Her Longtime Companion.
Was January, I actually know the exact date, because I had my publisher release it on my best friend and her mom's birthday, which are the same. It's kind of weird. January 11th, 2012. Okay.
So, a little birdie told me that you're getting a little bit of love for these two books. Some finalist action and whatnot. Can you toot your little horn?
For Come Back to Me, it was up for Goldie at the Golden Crown Literary Society for romance, and then also it was up for the Bannon Popular Choice Award. Mm-hmm. Didn't win either. Not that I'm bitter.
No, not that you're bitter at all. Do you want to know what, Chris? You didn't win because I wasn't there. And I'm going there this year. I'm going to be at GCLS. And if you're up for something this year, then you just have a wonderful chance of winning just because I'm there.
Longtime Companion, which is my fourth release, is been shortlisted, and by the time this is aired, I will have known if I won. Shortlisted for the Romance for Lobto Award this year, which is amazing because we get to go to New York and.
Oh, you get to be in my hood.
Yeah, it'd be kind of cool, and I just need to go, and then it's actually shortlisted for Bannon for the Goldies again.
Sweet.
So.
Yeah. Dude, coming by where I live. I'll totally go have a cup of coffee with you or something.
Cool.
Sweet.
Yeah.
And by the time this comes out, we will know how much we've enjoyed each other's company.
Yeah. This is true.
Dude, it was awesome. You and I were great. The things you said and the places that we went, and there was stuff. Anyway, let's talk about Come Back to Me. Can you give me a little blurb about what that story's about, and then I'll launch into my review?
I tell you how I got the idea for the story real quick. It was kind of weird. When we lived downtown in Indianapolis, we had a condo, and I was walking our dog, Buddy, the Wonder Beagle, and I happened to look up, and I saw it had a full moon that night, and I thought, what would it be like if there was a couple who had been together and then split up for a certain reason, which I didn't know at the time what it would be, and that they're both linking up at the same moon, but they're in different cities, and they're both wondering where the other one's at. And so then that gave me the idea for the book, and it's about two women who meet in college, fall in love, are separated pretty much, I need to say pretty much, by the dad of the rich one, who's Meryl McLean, and they...
Not to be confused with McCain and those rich white folks.
And she ends up marrying because her dad, insists on her getting married, and Angie goes on to become this. She had originally been writing lesbian mystery novels, and she gets the idea that she wants to write from first person as a male detective, and her agent's like, no, you can't do that. But then they come up with the idea of having a pseudonym, and so then her books just take off, and she's writing under the name Zach England. So anyway, the way they get together is kind of roundabout, but Meryl, who's a book review editor for, basically it's the New York Times, but I changed the name of the book, rips the book to pieces, and then she has to go down to Key West where Zach England may live and see if she can find this guy, and not knowing that it's Angie, her long lost love.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. Cue the dramatic music. Or the music from Somewhere in Time, which I used.
Oh my Lord. When I was reading that, Somewhere in Time's a movie with Christopher Reeves and Jane Seymour. And if you haven't seen it, you need to go see it. And I saw it when I was a wee lass in the 80s. I saw it, and I was born in 76, so I was little-ish. And I remember so distinctly this particular story and how sad it was, how it came, how things came apart, and, come back to me. Which is where you got the title, once again, from something iconic. Yeah. But what I found interesting was that you like the movies, I'm thinking. Do you like going to the movies if you're like a huge movie fan?
No, actually, it's kind of interesting. I was thinking about this when my dad just passed away in April, and which we talked about through emails. But this is April, so that shows you where my head is. It was, it seems like it's been so long ago. But the love of baseball I got from my dad, the love of history I got from my dad, the love of old movies. And so I started thinking pretty much what I write about is things that I learned, sitting around talking to my dad, and he would have me watch black and white movies and ones that he thought were really good. And so that's kind of where some of my writing has come from so far. And A Time to Dance doesn't really do that, but the baseball stories for playing for first for the series, and then Come Back to Me. He loved that movie, and he loved the music.
And The Graduate, apparently.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, that came to me when it was kind of weird. I was in the back seat of the car with my parents when my mom had surgery. I always remember this. And I had my little notebook with me. And I thought of that scene from The Graduate. Mm-hmm. And I thought, I got to get this in the book because that's how she would have felt, and she didn't take the chance to stop the wedding. So, but yeah, and then Survived by Her Longtime Companion, of course, is about old movie stars and from 1950 on, and
Rock Hudson.
Yeah, definitely Rock Hudson. That was exactly who I was pattering that out.
Yeah, I knew where you were going with that. And one of the things that I found really exciting about Survived by a Longtime Companion, which I'll do a little quick blurb about it, myself, so I can launch into my ideas about it. Essentially, in the first chapter, Chelsea and Bailey have been kind of ships passing in the night. When one's away on business, the other one is there. They're pretty much not seeing each other anymore, and Chelsea just decides, we need to end this. We haven't really been living together for the last 2 years, and, she had made a romantic dinner that had to go to waste because of timing that Bailey had absolutely no control over. So they break up. And Bailey's a researcher, and Chelsea is a professor, women's studies. And so they both get this, this lead. One of them, for Bailey, Joanne is a biographer and is hiring her to go there to interview the longtime companion of Daphne du Maurier, which is a fake movie actress. And nobody's able to get in there, and it's one of those things where, oh, you're a lesbian, she'll talk to you because she's a lesbian. And it'll totally work out because she's been shutting me down cold, and everybody down cold. The companion that survived by her longtime companion was what it was in the obituary. And her longtime companion was Eleanor Burnett. Anyway, so Eleanor is a pretty shrewd, beautiful older woman. Mm-hmm. And, she decides to kill two birds with one stone because not only has Bailey been trying to get an interview, Chelsea has as well. And she's like, well, why don't you both come at the same time? So, I don't have to go through this twice. And so they arrive and get freaked out because Bailey didn't think that she'd bump into Chelsea. She knew she was in the same town where she was a professor, but, she definitely didn't expect to see her in Eleanor's home. And Eleanor's like, oh, so what's going on? I can sense there's some history here. And they're like, oh, we broke up. And why did you break up? Well, we kind of were growing apart. We didn't have time. We got busy. You got busy? She's like, you got busy and you gave up on a 9-year relationship because you got busy? Let me tell you about troubles. And so she gets them to come and read her diaries. And through reading the diaries, they read the love affair between Eleanor and Daphne. And this shrewd, older, gorgeous woman is like, I am going to pay matchmaker, so I'm not going to allow you to have a recorder or to take notes. You have to read back and forth from my diary, and maybe at some point I'll let you take some home. But until then, you guys are going to have to play nice with each other. So that's the little, in. And speaking of segues, which I normally have terrible ones because I'm usually very tangential, but we actually have a reading coming our way from Chris, and it's going to be leading up to the first kiss between Daphne and Eleanor. So,
Yeah, this is from, I think it might be the second section or second reading from the diary. And Eleanor and Daphne have already met, because Daphne is like the world famous movie star who's gorgeous. And at one point, Eleanor says later in the book that Jean Tierney reminds her of Daphne, so you could kind of picture who she is, which is gorgeous. And they meet. They don't really meet, but Eleanor was reading for this small bit part in one of Daphne du Maurier's movies, and so she gets invited. Eleanor gets invited to this party that Daphne du Maurier always has when she first starts filming a new movie, and Eleanor's like puzzled why she would be invited since she's just an extra. So this is where this starts out. Friday, 25th of August, 1950. I arrived at the gated entrance to Miss du Maurier's Beverly Hills home at 7:30, gave my name to the attendant, and followed others garbed in elegant tuxes and party dresses down the winding path to her home. I glanced down at my attire and wondered again about my choice. Rose had helped me find a soft blue satin gown that fell to my knees. It brings out the blue in your eyes, she said, but it also showed plenty of cleavage. I felt exposed and checked around before tugging the front a little higher. The sprawling Spanish-style mansion was everything I expected it to be. The sun was descending in the western sky, and its dying golden rays suffused the white stucco in a soft orange light. A doorman again stopped me to check off my name. After passing inspection, I moved from the foyer into the large living room overflowing with beautiful people. Searching where to stand to blend in, I spotted a small alcove by the hors d'oeuvres table and bar. It seemed safe enough. I approached the bartender. A glass of white wine, please. An excited murmur rippled through the crowd. I craned my neck to see Daphne du Maurier enter the room. Her smile lit on everyone she turned to, while her gaze held them in place. A glowing aura surrounded her. I blinked, thinking it must be the lighting. A silver jewel-encrusted barrette pushed her dark hair back on the side. The rest cascaded onto her bare shoulders. A slit in her white, sequined gown, rising almost to her hip, allowed a generous view of one tanned leg as she moved through the crowd. My mouth felt suddenly dry. I took several sips of wine and tried to tear my eyes away from her, but I failed in the effort. A group of 4 or 5 young, handsome men descended upon her and surrounded her, preventing her from walking farther. One handed her a drink, leaned in to kiss her cheek, and pressed his lips to her ear. She threw her head back as she laughed at something he must have said. My gaze was drawn down her long neck to her cleavage below. I snapped my eyes up when I realized where I'd been looking and held back a gasp. Daphne du Maurier was still laughing with the men surrounding her, but she was staring at me. I took another long drink to finish off the rest of my wine and searched for a place to set down the glass. When I turned around, my heart leapt to my throat. Daphne was walking slowly toward me and seemed to be sizing me up, like a lioness hunting a gazelle on the plains of Africa. "Hello," she said, in that famous husky voice that was almost a growl. "I was in the studio when you read this week. Eleanor Burnett, right?" I nodded, unable to find enough saliva to utter a word. "I know you can speak. I heard you read your lines," she said in a teasing tone. I swallowed. Yes, I'm surprised you remember me, Miss du Maurier." "Oh, I never forget names." She locked in on my eyes. Her pretty faces. Fire heated my cheeks. "Why don't we go someplace a little quieter to chat?" Not awaiting my reply, she took my hand and led me through the throng. She allowed several actors to give her air kisses along the way. She maneuvered me to the backyard to a cement bench ensconced within a beautiful flower garden. "Sit with me." There wasn't much of a choice as she pulled me to her side. "So, Ellie. May I call you Ellie?" Yes. I don't know why I agreed. No one had ever called me that. mesmerized in her presence. It was as if Pixie had sprinkled magic dust upon my head and rendered me helpless to do anything but what she bid. I love your accent. She pressed her leg against mine. I've been to England a time or two. Where are you from? Banbury in Oxfordshire. A long way from home, I imagine it gets lonely. She placed her hand on my knee. It felt like a red-hot poker had seared through my dress. Sometimes, I stuttered, my skin ablaze, my body reacted in ways it never had before. Only 2 young men had sat this intimately with me. I had felt nothing with them but a sense of dread as to what happened next. With her, I felt fear and something else unforeseen, longing. Her gaze dropped to my mouth. She questioned me with one upraised eyebrow as she drew even nearer. I took a breath before her lips pressed into mine. Her long, thin fingers entwined into my hair and pulled me closer. Daphne de Monet is kissing me ran through my mind until a second thought hit me like a hammered spike. And that's our beagle.
That was an awesome moment for him to howl. That was just so awesome. Way to go, Pooch.
You like me to keep going?
Oh, shit. Why not?
You want me to stop?
That was something that Daphne would be saying. Do you want me to stop? And Eleanor would be so like, I guess you don't. I'm going to kiss you again.
But I think he's okay, and I think the reason he's doing that, he wants food. Daphne de Monet is kissing me ran through my mind until a second thought hit me like a hammered spike. A woman is kissing me, and I'm kissing her back. Oh my God. I yanked my mouth away with a soft cry and jumped to my feet. Miss de Monet, the dimming light from the setting sun captured the amusement on her face. I think you can call me Daphne after a kiss like that. Terrified and shaken, I fled from her and from the conflicting emotions raging inside of me. Wait, I'm sorry. I heard her gown rustling behind me as she rushed to catch up. Just as I made it to the back door, she grasped my wrist. I'm sorry, I thought you thought I'd what? I asked with tears streaming down my cheeks. Her cheeks grew flushed, and her dark eyes pleaded with mine for something I knew I wasn't able to give. I'm so sorry. Please don't think ill of me. I presumed something, and I took advantage of you. I stared at her hand, still holding my wrist in its tight grip. She let go. Please, you won't tell anyone, will you? Gone was the sleek huntress, replaced by a frightened young woman concerned about her reputation, and most likely her career. No, I answered quietly. No, I won't tell anyone, but you must know I'm not that way. A sudden thought came to mind. The reason I got the part, it wasn't because of this, was it? She hesitated, enough for me to know the answer. Anger boiled inside of me. You and Mr. Teller can find someone else for your Brit. I barged through the back door of the house and shoved past anyone in my path, not caring who it was nor what kind of dark looks I received. Before I left, I couldn't help myself. There was such a pull to turn back to her, as if I were the ocean tide and she the moon. Her admirers had surrounded her once again, all vying for her attention. But Daphne de Monet only had eyes for me.
That is so Scarlett O'Hara moment. Because, I mean, like you were talking about the admirers, and I immediately, my brain went to Antebellum.
Yeah.
We're still cinematic. I haven't left you.
Yeah. I know what scene you're talking about in Gone with the Wind, too.
Yes! I was like, instantly, my brain, because I have such a cinematic brain sometimes. I get like little clips of movies and whatnot. And so the second she was surrounded by admirers, it's like, oh my God, it's Scarlett. Oh, Lord. That was a great, I think that's a great way to kind of a window into what the experience is going to be like. Because essentially, Survived by a Longtime Companion, it starts with, I guess, like about a paragraph where it tells you this is the date, this is what's happening. And then it launches into an actual scene. So these aren't in flashback format with like blurred lines, not blurred, but like italicized. One of the problems that a lot of writers get into is they want the readers to know the backstory of something. Mm-hmm. So they decide that they're going to put in a flashback to kind of fill in the blanks. The problem with filling in the blanks that way is that it will tug you backwards and you'll leave the actual story. So what I thought was innovative was, even though it was sequential and you were going through diaries, you felt like you were actively watching Daphne and Eleanor fall in love, watching them go through their difficulties and succumb them or not.
Right.
And so it still had forward momentum. Maybe it's like space-time continuum. We need to talk with Einstein about relativity because it's just really confusing. But I thought it was really sneaky because, like, I'm still going back to Eleanor as an older, gorgeous woman.
Actually, picture Vanessa Redgrave, because that's who I pictured when I
really?
described her. Yeah, so.
Because in my head, when I'm thinking beautiful older woman,
mm-hmm.
I have a few different women in my head. Vying for my attention, my suitors. Well, one gorgeous older woman is Helen Mirren.
I knew you were going to say that, yeah. I really like her.
But the first person I was thinking of was Lauren Bacall. Because when she came to do her Lifetime whatever award, I think was for the Oscars, she wasn't all there still, but she was stunning and without all of that plastic surgery. You know, I love a gorgeous looking older woman who has wrinkles and you know that they've lived. They're not constantly surprised. You know, their foreheads aren't waxy from Botox. You know, they don't have bizarre smiles from Restylane, you know.
Yeah.
And this is important to me because, you know, Judi Dench is another example of a beautiful woman who let herself age. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Well, we watch BBC America a lot, and what we've noticed about those shows is they're very different than what Hollywood television is like, where everybody's perfect and everybody is cute and everybody is thin, and it's not like that over there. You have normal looking actors and actresses playing parts that it's just nice to see, and so I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I have, you know, a deep appreciation for people who age naturally. I mean, I know there's a lot of pressure and, you know, you have to stay beautiful and perfect and, you know, whatnot. But I mean, I'm only 36, but I don't color my hair. And, you know, I was in the bathroom, and you know how awesome hotel bathrooms are for making you look attractive with the fluorescent lighting. And it's like, I was looking at I have a really long hair. My hair actually goes down to my waist. And I was looking at my hair, and I was like, I've got highlights. They're called gray hair. It's called gray hair. I have lots of like silver or white streaks going on, and it's a natural thing to go. I just, you know, I'm like, I want to be my age. And I think because I've always found my mother and my grandmother beautiful, that I've never striven to freeze time. And I just can't imagine. Think about if you're an expressive person facially, which I am. Think about how bizarre it must feel to stick stuff in your skin that makes your skin numb.
Right.
Or like Joan Rivers, who jokes, I can't feel my face. I can't feel my face. Because she's gotten so much work done. But I love her. It's like she is awesome and Dolly Parton is awesome.
Right.
Because they're unapologetic about the surgery. This is the other thing. I hate when people are bullshit artists. And I was like, you go, Dolly. She's like, I know I look fake. Fuck it. You know, it's like if something's sagging, bagging, and dragging, you know, I'm going to nick and tuck it and whatever. I was like, all right, that works. Yeah. You know, because she looks unreal.
Yeah, she does.
And so does Joan. But it's like, you know, screw it. But in general, what I'm talking about when I was picturing Eleanor as this just breathtaking older woman, I could see that. And actually, I might even pull this one picture out if I can find it. I have this picture I took of a woman when I was in Salzburg. And we were at a cafe, because that's the rule in Europe, you have to be at a cafe. I was at a cafe and I saw this woman. Her hair was very long. She had it back in a ponytail. She must have been You know, somebody who's in their 80s but looks like they're in their 60s because they're so damn gorgeous. So she was feeding a bird, and I made I was taking the photograph to take a picture of her feeding the bird, but she was shrewd enough to know that I was trying to take a picture of her because she's gorgeous. I'm like, you're gorgeous. Oh my goodness. So that's kind of what I pictured in my head because of how often Bailey was stricken, with, damn, Eleanor's a beautiful woman.
Yeah.
And she's slow dancing with her, and she's like, oh my God, what a beautiful woman. And I was like, yeah, that's nice. I like that.
Yeah.
So obviously I like your books a little bit.
Well, thank you. That's good to know.
They don't suck, and that's what I love about them.
Your books suck, but you can come on my show.
Amazingly enough, if it really is, if I honest and for God and for truly am reading something, and I feel like I really can do nothing other than say not good things.
Right.
I will pull the episode before I do it because I don't want. I'm just not that kind of girl. I can't. I'm not a serious, hard-nosed journalist. I'm a fan who likes talking to authors. I love to read and I like to talk to them about their work. But I'm not going to drag somebody down. I'm not going to rip somebody a new one. You won't ever see that in my show.
Right.
And there have been 2 instances where I've had to pull. And I've said, look, I will beta read for you. I will read your stuff and give you my best advice. But having you on the show this time is not a good thing because I don't think it'll serve you. Think about yourself as an author or me with my show. There's this thing called branding, and you want your public face to be something positive. Or, for people to experience your show in a certain way. And my brand, Liz McMullen Show and Lizzie's Bedtime Stories, it's all fun-loving and fun. And, even we talk about serious topics and whatnot. It's not, all champagne and lollipops, I'll tell you. But I don't have a show where well, you did this wrong, and if you do this, it'll be better. It's what not to do is what your book is doing. And this is how you can fix it. I'm like, no, that's not my show. I can't do that. It's not my show. And at the same time, it's if I don't have anything nice to say, or if the predominant amount of information that I'm putting out there is, this author is really good because she realizes that she needs a lot of work, and yet she was still willing to come on the show. That's just not my show. I can't do that. So, it's not that I love everything that I review or everything's awesome. But I just don't have the heart in me, to do that to somebody. I'm like, no, you're trying to grow your name as an author, and I don't want my show out there as a blemish on your record, and I wish the best, that kind of shit.
Right.
That kind of shit. So I'm such a lady. But anyway, I have notes beside me because, I have a terrible memory for things that are linear or facts or names, so I have a list. So one of the things I find funny because I'm so tangential is on the top of my page, because I have it split in 2, on the top of my page is come back to me, and I keep on reading it out of irony. Come back to me. Liz, come back to the books. Come back to the books. You're supposed to be just, oh my God. Okay, I'm going to come back to talking about come back to me. Amazing. No. What do you think? What do you think as a lesbian fiction author about a lesbian author who decides to step away from lesbian fiction to make some cash? And how do you feel about that?
I don't think I could fault someone for doing that. Maybe it's because I know what it's like as a lesbian author and the royalties that I get. I could understand somebody doing that, so I wouldn't necessarily criticize them. But yeah, with Angie, that was her whole purpose. Angie Cantonini and Come Back to Me was, she even was talking in part of the book, she's like, who are you trying to fool, Angie? You just want to make some money. Because she was trying to act like it was some noble cause for her to be writing like the way she did.
Well, also, like, one of the things that you have in there, let me interrupt you, is that she wrote it, she knew it was good, and no one would pick it up. No publisher would take it because they didn't want, like, one of those butch, cock-swinging, detectives, hard-nosed detectives, being written by a lesbian.
Right.
Or a woman. Doesn't matter. Lesbian woman. Lesbian woman is, like, 2 X's against it. And so she's like, I want to write this story. This is my book. I want it to go somewhere. And then her agent, Sally, convinces her, well, why don't you write as a man? Oh. Do I have to? Oh, I guess so. And then the money just starts pouring in. And, there are money choices, I realize, that also in Survived by the Longtime Companion. Like, Angie's the author who's writing as Zach England. Mm-hmm. And so she had been writing as Zach England, and then she just kind of got disenchanted with it, and the rip that she got from Merrill, the review was lousy, because she was bored with it, but she was kind of holding on to that pen name for the money, and then realized after a certain point that it wasn't worth it. And for Daphne, when a sleazy reporter from the Tinseltown Tattler Ted Martin came on the scene, it was either pretend that you're straight, which she did, and she married Gordon, who is a gay man, the one we said represented Rock Hudson.
Right.
And Eleanor was like, oh, so you're doing this so, that you can keep your job? Oh, I get it. You don't want to not have your fans. And Daphne was guilty as charged. And Eleanor's like, fuck it. I'm gone. I'm leaving. Yeah. You do that. I'm not sticking around. I'm not going to be, a concubine.
Right.
Which is good for her. And so she went back to England, and that shocked the shit out of Daphne. She's like, you're going where? And things go badly, and Daphne can't work, and Gordon tries to convince her to come back, and she's like, I'm not coming back. And then, cinematic again, after the marriage is over, Daphne shows up in England in the middle of a downpour, because that's what happens in England.
Yes.
And of course she gets deathly ill because she's the tortured soul who is walking through the pouring rain and without a proper brolly.
Right.
And she decides to, after she gets healthy, she decides, because she's getting a second chance with Eleanor, that she gives up being an actress altogether.
Right.
So I was like, that was unexpected, Chris. I did not expect that to happen. I didn't expect for her to say, oh, well, with choice between being with you and keeping my fan and my career, I realized I made the wrong choice and I choose you. I was surprised by that, actually.
Yeah, I actually knew Daphne needed, at least for me, since I wrote it, needed that time. I think when I was writing it, I wasn't sure how much time was going to go by. I think I have it at 5 years that they're in England. And that she had already screwed up once before this. And earlier in the book, when Eleanor catches her in bed with another woman. And
Janet, the whore. No,
yeah.
No, ironically, and I'm sure this wasn't accidental. Janet was the one that she read her lines with when Eleanor did her lines. So I thought it was like an extra little slap in the butt that she's having sex with her.
Right. And actually walks in on the act. And that's, one of my favorite things I did there was Eleanor was watching her, and Daphne pulls a sheet up past her chest, and she was like, why are you doing that? I haven't seen you like this, and worshipped your body the same way this woman has just done. And so she had to get her back then. after some months go by, that she comes and does the similar scene where she comes to the door and apologizes and comes in and I love you. I finally realize I love you, and pretty much gets down on her knees. And so when it happens later, and it's such a more dramatic thing where there's 2 years that go by that they don't even see each other, and Daphne, like you said, Daphne is distraught and really can't work, and she may be in movies, but they may be lousy movies, and so when she comes to see Eleanor again and gets her love back, she's scared, and that's why I did that. She's scared to go back to that lifestyle because she's already lost her twice, and it's one of those like, oh my God, if it happens a third time, that's it. And so it takes Eleanor to tell her it's okay. You need to be doing what you're good at, and that's being in front of the camera.
Well, I mean, 5 years is some really good contrition.
Mm-hmm.
To be in England and not be a part of that. And what I thought was really interesting little irony was that she was selling tickets at a theater.
Right.
As her job. And that mostly the people left her on her own in that very European way of, she must be wanting to get away from something. We're not going to give her a hard time thing.
Yeah, right.
Which is, actually, that's kind of a, yeah, right, because there's this romanticized version of Europe. And I've traveled there a lot, and it's awesome. I think it's great. And I know why people make European fantasies. But you can't help but notice that, Princess Di was murdered because she was trying to get away from paparazzi. Right. Yeah. And they made her life miserable. Where? In England. No shit. I thought that's where people go and nothing happens to them because they're all respectful and shit. Mm-hmm. But I thought the 5 years was a good amount of time. It definitely showed, you have to kind of show your priorities more. Like, because first she cheated on her. Mm-hmm. Then she left her for her career. Like, instead of you being my partner, you're going to be my little thing on the side.
Right.
And Eleanor has enough enough self-esteem that she pushes her away. I think that's great because there are a lot of folks who just live their lives in drudgery in the closet and in resignation. So from the reading that you did earlier where she's like, I'm not that way, to all right, I may not be able to be out and proud, I'm here, I'm queer, get used to it, but I'm not going to be your whore. Right. I'm not going to be your thing on the side, and if your job and your fans are more important than our relationship, then I don't want to be in a relationship with you.
Right. Yeah, I based the character of Daphne on a couple of I had read about it. Actually, the way I back up, the way I came up with the idea for the book was Phyllis and I were, my partner Phyllis and I were sitting at the dinner table chatting about, I don't even know how we got on the subject, but I said, have you ever noticed how in obituaries, if it's an actress, or they always say survived by her longtime companion, they won't come out and say her longtime lover or her partner or whatever. And then I was talking about this particular actress and who had been rumored to be a lesbian, and I think I don't know, but I think maybe only one major newspaper had the survived by a longtime companion part. So I was like, oh wow, that's a good title for a book, and then I thought, wow, that would be a good book. I sounded like Judy Garland and Mickey Rooney were like, let's put on a show. And then Phyllis, after that, I just couldn't quit thinking about it. And then I was trying to figure out, well, how can I make it work? At one time, it was just going to be Bailey, and then maybe have Chelsea come in later. But then I thought, you know what? Why don't we have Chelsea and Bailey breaking up, have some time go by, and then have them start reading these diaries and have them learn from Eleanor and Daphne. And I just thought that would be a good premise for it. And at one time, I was trying to figure out how to make it work because I didn't want the diary entries to read dry, which diary entries can read dry. So I just made it like it was a first-person book, which obviously that's not how diary entries read, but it did in the book, you know. And I just...
You know, I'm trying to think of time frame wise, and correct me if I'm wrong, because my memory's terrible. That's why I always like to have notes next to me. But I think her name is Leslie Gore. She's a singer.
Mm-hmm.
It's My Party.
Yeah.
You know,
Right. Yeah.
You Don't Own Me. She's a big Leslie. And so it's kind of, I'm trying to picture, because I can picture, you know, things happening in the 20s is different, but 30s and 40s, and the 50s is a whole new ball game. And so in my head, even though this probably Leslie Gore is the 60s kind of thing, but I'm picturing what it must have been like to live through. And she continued to be in the closet until the 90s. Like her career was already kind of on ice by then. And I wonder, I'm like, At the same time, you think that, oh, they should have come out by then. Come on. And then you see what happened to Ellen. And boy, did her world just kind of explode.
Right.
To the point where you're certain, like other closeted homosexual go, see, that's why we won't come out. We're going to lose our career, you know. I never liked the Ellen Show in the first place, her sitcom. I didn't think it was funny. I liked her as a comedian, but I too thought, I was like, damn, that's pretty much the end of it. She made her statement that she took one for the team.
Right.
And that was all she wrote. And then, in all awesomeness, she not only regained her career, but she's in a market that would seem absolutely impossible to be out, like Rosie O'Donnell being in the closet and whatnot, for daytime television, for talk shows. And Ellen is a big old lesbian, and they don't make her wear certain things, and she wears really fancy sneakers because she doesn't like dress shoes, and she wears, like, you know, her little soft butch gear.
Right.
And she's got a gorgeous wife, Portia, and I was like, yes. I was like, Portia needs to eat, but she has an eating disorder, so I'm not going to mess with her. Like, she's not one of those actresses who are trying to be thin. Like, she has a disorder. So, but anyway, they've been together, and they've been married, and Portia hasn't come up, you know, delirious, saying that she's been implanted by aliens, because that could be the only way that she could be with Ellen. Right. Yeah, and then Ancient Aliens would have to be about Ellen, and then they would try to find out. I don't know. Anyway. So I digress. But the point is that even though reading along in the story, even though that we're talking about way back in the 50s and whatnot, you're like, why didn't you stand? Because even in the 90s, somebody standing up and being direct about things ruined their career. Right. I mean, that's something that Eleanor even says when she's talking to Bailey and Chelsea. You know, actually, she's just talking to Bailey about it. How many out actresses and actors do you know in Hollywood even today? You may have your suspicions, but how many have actually come out and said they're gay? Getting back to what we were talking about, what I might have based some of the characters on, even though she doesn't look anything like her, Daphne, I used some things that had happened to Barbara Stanwyck, and who, I guess, I never really heard if she's bisexual or just a lesbian, but but she actually married, I want to say Robert. There's two different actors, and I can't think of which one. And supposedly they were both gay. He was supposed to be gay, and she is. It was. And I kind of based it on that. And what happened with them was something that was similar that happened in the book. They were getting pressure from these Hollywood rags that
they're homosexuals and they're awful, and so they end up getting married, and so I kind of based that on that, and then of course we talked about Rock Hudson. I mean, that's definitely who Gordon
is.
Yeah,
I find this funny about Gordon, because my brain tangent girl was thinking to this character of Zach England from Come Back to Me, and it's that really hyper masculine, no way could he be gay. Only sissies are gay. Not Rock Hudson. That's not possible. Or no woman can write a badass like Zach England. Come on, it's not possible. I did cry. One of the things when Gordon shows up on the doorstep and they can tell that he's in advanced stage of AIDS, and that made me cry. And the what's it called, the news conference, press conference, that made me cry a lot. It's not Doris Day, Donna Shore. Was Donna Shore the one who was with him?
That's something I think it was Diana Shore, but I'm not sure. It was one of those two.
I'm thinking Dinah Shore for the only reason why I'm thinking that way is because I think I saw her on Biography. And listeners, correct us in messages on Facebook if we fuck it up. But I remember, actually it was Dinah Shore, because there are like different idiosyncrasies, like things that she was known for doing during whatever shows that she was on. And I love that she sat with him. And, I love that even though it was so far in an advanced stage of the disease, I love that Rock Hudson, said it before he died, in the same way that Freddie Mercury did. He admitted to, yes, I am gay and I do have AIDS. And so I thought that was an important thing to have in there, because it tied into the kind of philanthropy that they would be involved in.
Right. I didn't mean interrupt.
No, go ahead.
I just interrupted.
No, totally interrupt me, because I'll do it to you again, probably.
I based some of that character of Daphne, too, on Elizabeth Taylor. Even though Elizabeth Taylor wasn't gay. She was so gay-friendly, and she had so many gay, especially male friends, and Montgomery Clift was one, who she was like fiercely devoted to. And I kind of, as far as like you said, the philanthropic, I can't say the word, but anyway, the
philanthropic
work that she did.
There you go, philanthropic. There we go.
I can actually probably say that better than the other. I based that on what all she did, and I do believe she did go in front of Congress and talk about it, and but she, I just wanted to I tied in a lot of different actresses for her role, or for her particular character, and anyway, I just remember that scene I wrote about Gordon and coming to bed. It was like 12. It was in midnight, and I had actually written probably about 3,000 words that night, and that's a lot for me. And I came to bed. I was crying, and Phyllis knew, why I was upset, because I have a best friend who's gay, and that's how I would feel if something were to happen to him, and that's who I was probably, not even knowing I was thinking about him when I was writing it. I think that's why it hit me so hard when I wrote it, because like I said, that was probably the only part that I actually cried while I was writing that story, but it was later when I was reading the book out loud to Phyllis that I got choked up at different places, and I had to stop.
No, when I was 8, my grandmother died of stomach cancer, and 2 years before that, my father's mother died of lung cancer. But I had lived and grown up with my grandmother. We were a two family household, and we knew for about 6 months before she passed, we knew she was going to pass. So it was good in that we were able to really get a chance to show her how much that we loved her and tell her we love her every day. And kind of, we have some notice that a lot of people don't get. And, but as a result of that impact on me when I was 8, anytime there's a terminal illness of some sort that's going to play out in a book or in a movie, or I remember, I think it was Aidan Quinn is his name. He played somebody who had AIDS and passed away.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my God, I can't believe I'm pulling these names out. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Because I suck at names. But that made me bawl. Philadelphia made me bawl. Mm-hmm. Which was Tom Hanks playing a lawyer who was fired from his firm when he was suspected to be ill with AIDS. They actually did, a nasty thing and made it seem like he made a huge error so that they could actually have cause to fire him when they really were firing him because he had AIDS. But my point being is like those moments are going to resonate, like Gordon passing away. We've known Gordon all through the diaries, and he's a good guy, and he's likable, and he's a good friend to Daphne, and I could feel the heartbreak going through Daphne when he walked into their house. Ugh.
Yeah. It was so interesting. The romance is the actual, the love between the characters that I write in my books. It's always based on how I feel about Phyllis, and some of the words that we say to each other, and some of the things that she says to me are in my stories. And but what was interesting is Phyllis also went through cancer this last year, and my dad was diagnosed in late January, and Phyllis was diagnosed February, the third week of February, I think it was. So within 2.5 weeks, I found out my dad has terminal lung cancer, and thank God Phyllis was stage 1A uterine cancer, but she still had to go through the treatment. In the book, Survived by Her Longtime Companion, Daphne gets ill because she has strokes, and one of the things she tells Eleanor is, maybe I don't want you here anymore, maybe this is too much for you, and I don't ever want to be a burden to you. And Phyllis said those words when I was helping take care of her, because she also got MRSA in the middle of all this. And so I had to tend to her wound and everything, and she just started crying, and she's like, I don't ever want to be a burden to you. And I just remember I started crying back and said, do you remember in Survived by Her Longtime Companion what Eleanor said? And we were actually outside the cancer treatment center where she had radiation treatment, and I stopped her on the walk, and I said, what did she say? And she said, you're never going to be, I would never think of you as a burden, and you're my heartbeat. Don't you know that? And I said the same thing to Phyllis. So it was interesting. So many things happened in my life after I wrote that book that were so parallel, and seeing my dad, go from 210 pounds down to 140, and it reminded me of somebody, dying of AIDS, and it was, where he was like a skeleton in the book, Gordon. And so there were so many things that happened, and it was just amazing that I'd written that book when I did. And I can joke about it because we had my dad on the mantle. His ashes are on the mantle here, and we'll like say funny things to him, and eventually we're going to spread his ashes, but that's also in the book. And I was telling Phyllis that the other day. I said, isn't it amazing how much stuff has happened that's like in that book? And it's funny, my dad wants to be some of his ashes spread down the Ohio River at the gambling boat where they used to go all the time, my mom and dad. So
I think they call that precognition. There's this book, I think it's called Back to Salem, and the rub in the book, and I can't think of the name of the author, is how she wrote a novel before all these different things happen, and is a direct parallel to what does happen, with the exception of the ending, because they changed the ending in the movie from what the actual ending was in the book. And then you find out as you finish reading the book, oh, the movie was wrong. That's not what happened, and it actually is full precognition from the beginning to end. So it's an interesting book.
Yeah, and Phyllis, going through. I don't know if you've ever been with anybody that's gone through chemo. It's horrible. You think, and I've said that to so many people. You think you understand what being with somebody and being a caretaker for someone and being in love with someone with cancer who goes through treatment, you think you can understand when somebody tells you what it's like, but unless you actually go through it, which God forbid, I don't want anybody to ever have that happen, you don't really have a clue.
No.
It's just, it saps your energy, and it hits with the nurse that told us, to keep a diary, because if it happened this day, or that day for the first treatment, then it's probably going to happen that way for the second treatment. And she was right, and I was able to keep track that way about how Phyllis would be feeling. And but we had talked about that just recently, how many things that have happened in our life that were similar to what I'd already written.
Makes you get extra cautious what the hell you're going to write next, Chris.
I think so too.
You got to watch your shit and think about your partner, okay? You can't be writing this kind of stuff going on. It's creepy. And like Phyllis will be thinking, is this real or not? So if she ends up poisoned with succinylcholine or, whatever, we're going to know it was you. Anyway. So, very serious way to end our story, but our episode. But it's natural progression. There's lots of stuff in real life that we deal with, and it shows up in or at least we find ourselves or see ourselves in the things that we read and identify with. And my ultimate feeling about the two novels that I read, Come Back to Me and Survived by a Longtime Companion, is that I was glad that I was there for the ride. I thought that it was very well written. And that even though working within the romance category, you really broke the mold in terms of how you told the story. And, I really appreciated that, and I'm sure your fans do too. So thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'll have you on again, and maybe we'll have another Back to the Future moment.
Okay, yeah, that'd be cool.